Hello, you wonderful people, and welcome to another episode of Not Too Comic Book. This being a show where it's about TV shows that are adaptations of comic books. For today's episode, I'm going to talk about the latest episode of The Walking Dead. A lot of really interesting things went down in this episode, so let's break it down. Well, first and foremost, we're picking up in the aftermath of everything. That, obviously in the chaos of Sebastian's death, the walkers in the town and everything. But I thought was so interesting, that lady who ran into you. It's like, oh, you're the one that killed Sebastian. I'm like, what are you talking about, lady? There are plenty of witnesses that it can attest. At the very least, Eugene pushed a walker, it landed on Sebastian. Yeah, he might have done that, but I didn't see jack squat. There was a crowd of people. No one lifted a hand to help Sebastian because they all knew he was a tool bag. So it's like, it sucks that all falls on, but it's like, right, shouldn't everyone else there be culpable as well? Because no one lifted a hand to help Sebastian. But now it's like, right, Max and Eugene are in trouble for doing this, but Pamela's willing to let bygones be bygones when it comes to Max. Be like, okay, she served me loyally for 10 years. She just had a lapse in judgment. She was, as Pamela puts up the statement later on, kind of like, or at least wants her to sign this statement saying like, hey, I'm off my medication or whatever, that she wasn't in her right state of mind. But Eugene, he needs to be the fall guy. She's like, right, this place has to show that there are consequences. I'm like, really? Considering your son never faced any of the consequences, he, like, it's like, right, him dying, I agree with Dara. I was like, the bastard deserved all the crappy stuff he's done. It's like, he got what he deserved. It all came, all the times he was feeding walkers to get what he wanted. Yeah, like, karma came back and bit him super hard, and rightfully so. But, like, I get it. It's the thing of, right, this was your son. You loved him. You saw him for, like, yes, he messed up a lot of times. Sure, he wasn't perfect. She wasn't blind to his issues. But the fact is, that was still her son. And they never quite figured their situation out. And now they never will. That opportunity was taken from them. And, like, now it's like where they are now, her looking over his dead body. It's like, what do we have left? After all the sacrifices we made to get to where we are, it was all for nothing because she's the only one standing. Like, she doesn't have Sebastian anymore, and maybe any grandchildren that Sebastian might have given her at some point in time. Like, the Milton family ends with her. It's not even like, once again, no parent should die no child should die before their parents. I think any parent will gotta feel that sentimentality. Feel that sentiment, so now she's left with nothing but kind of rage. And when she goes and visits Hornsby, I was like, oh, so this is what's going to happen. Hornsby's going to do his thing. He's going to sweet talk. But I guess somehow she figured it out, like, oh, I know how this happened. I don't know whether like surveillance footage or whatever, but it's like, your people killed 8 workers, and then those 8 workers turn out, it's like, you're responsible for my son. He's like, I'm sorry, that wasn't my intention. It was just, I needed to show you once again, he wanted to prove a point, but it backfired. And now she's like, okay, cool. But he's like, trust me, like, you let me go, we'll work together. It's like, it's not even me, it's the people from Hilltop, it's the people from Alexandria. Let's get rid of them. They're the issues, they're the ones that sown the chaos. So she's like, okay, you're all about taking gambles. What you did before was a gamble that didn't pay off. In fact, it blew up and killed my son in the process. So she gets the coin, bounces it back and forth between hands. 2 choices. Pick one, pick the right one. You win. You get to live, and we continue on. Or you pick the wrong one and you die. So I figured, I was like, okay, I knew obviously he's going to pick the right one. And he does. I was like, okay, so I guess they're going to work together. It's like, the last thing you want to do is trust Hornsby, though. He might take advantage of the situation because he's always been aiming for the top regardless. But then Pamela brings in Sebastian. I'm like, wait, where's this going? And then brings in one of his subordinates. I was like, well, we know at least the fake Stephanie is still alive, but she could be captured somewhere because they probably like tortured them and got the information out of them. I don't know if Mercer had any part in doing that, but yeah, that one guy's dead, and she's like, okay, here's this machete, Hornsby. Feed my son, because this is all this. She doesn't want her son dead. She's like, I want you to feed him, though. Because at first I thought she was going to feed Hornsby to him. It's like, no. You get to live like I promised, and you're going to be at her disposal. And when she said that, I was like, oh, you're going to feed her son. But it's like, oh, once again, I thought you were going to literally feed him by being his food. But it's like, no, you're literally going to chop up pieces of your subordinate and feed it. I was like, wow. And so he still has at least one more. There's also other, like, yeah, those two are his main subordinates, but he was putting together his own little crop of people. And I'm like, interesting. Once again, like, everything would have pointed to Hornsby being like the like the final main antagonist. That this was all coming to a head with him. Like, they were setting the stage for it, and it seems like instead we're shaping Pamela to be that person because, well, she's so grief-stricken, and it's like she's trying to rein everything back, and everything that she's built. All of this has kind of been built on lies and corruption. It's not the place that it once was. I mean, that's kind of what happens when this crew comes into a place. They kind of inadvertently end up kind of, changing it. Once again, like they did with Alexandria. Alexandria changed so much, the moment like Rick and his crew like joined. So it's kind of, I think, a similar, something in a similar vein in that regard. So, and for her to kind of go full dark side on this episode like that was just kind of, like I said, unexpected. And because I expected Pamela to get killed, but I also feel like, well, it's also befitting because it's Lila Robbins. I always feel like I always get her first name wrong. I always forget if it's Layla or is it Lila. I think it might be Layla because it's L-A-I. Either way, she always brings very gravitas. She always plays these very like characters with this like gravitas to them. So I guess I thought that was going to be the whole thing, but it's like, no, of course, like they're going to bring someone of her like stature and, like I said, gravitas to this like role to make her go like, no, we're bringing in the big guns for. I mean, it still could play out that way, but I mean, I guess it could always end. The end result could still be like, hey, your boy Hornsby still ends up on top, but the way they shifted this now makes me go like, it seems like Pamela might pull through as a final antagonist. We'll see. It's also a powerful episode in the regard of everything with Mercer. He's tucked between a rock and a hard place because he doesn't want Eugene to die because he also knows how much Eugene means to Max, but he's also got to protect his sister, so he's got to round up everyone, including Rosita, everyone close to Eugene. So it's like, right, got to get, and even that because he has a really good relationship with Rosita, but he kind of like severs that in the moment because he's got to put his family first. So it's like, right, that wasn't even Eugene. I don't know where he is, but she does in fact know where he is. But the whole plan is to get him out of town, but he doesn't want to leave without Max. At the very least, not leaving until he knows that Max is okay. But Mercer's in this tough spot where it's like, right, he's got this job to do. And ultimately, when they do find Max, it's like, right, you need to sign this statement. But she's like, I refuse to, because she's like, Dad always had his responsibility as a general in the military, but he never forgot his role as a citizen. And she's like, I think Dad would have liked Eugene and he would have been ashamed of who you are right now. It's like, because you're fighting for this place as its rotten self. I want to make this place better. I want it to change for the better. It could be so much more, because she's like, I did all this. I'm even saying like the recording she made, they wanted to make her say like the recording was fake. It's like, no, even if I have to die, I'm going to die fighting for change. It's all worth it in the end, because this place needs to change. We can't, like, she saw this place for the ugliness it was, but she turned a blind eye for so long, and she can't turn a blind eye anymore to what this place is, because regardless of it all, Pamela never really did much to stop her son. In fact, she made a deal that would protect her son, make it so that he never had to suffer any consequences for the lives that were lost because of decisions and choices that he made, sending people to their death. So, and hearing that from Max in particular really struck him, because it's like, because the sad thing is that he is legitimately trying to do the right thing. And even the whole thing with Princess is very like heartbreaking too, because she was talking to Ezekiel, because Ezekiel wants to stay, but she wants to leave, because it's like, right, this place, it presents itself as nice, but it's not. Like, what's the point in staying here? But Ezekiel's like, Max and Eugene shined a truth in this place. This is the best time to fight when the people in power are panicked like they are. This is the best opportunity. And it's like, but do you think Mercer's a good man? She's like, yeah, I do. But for her, it's like, that just might not be enough anymore, because it's about this place, but it's also about Mercer. She found someone special. And when she told that heartbreaking story later on about why she can't stay, and talking about her mom remarrying after her dad left, and she got a terrible stepfather who brought in a terrible son who would push and yell and like shove her, and anytime she acted out, they would pick her. Her mom would just be like, because she didn't want him to leave, she was so desperate to keep her stepfather around that she did nothing when they would tie her up in the closet, to the point she'd be in there so long she'd piss herself, and they come in there and they beat her. It's like, oh, Juanita, it's not that bad. The bills are paid. Things could be worse. That's what set her off, was like hearing Mercer say those words, because he's like, right, you see, this place isn't perfect. I'm not perfect, but outside, like, things could be worse. And it's like, she's like, yes, so don't use those words against me, because she's like, this place reminds me of my stepfather, and if I stay here, it means I'm gonna be my mom. And she's like, I am not my mom. I was like, dude, that was powerful. And it's just that she's like, those words of like, oh, things could be worse, but she's like, yes, things could be better. Things need to be better. This place could be better. Because she's not asking him to be perfect, but it's like she's asking him to basically take a stand. Like, don't just sit on the sidelines and don't be like her mom in this situation, accepting things as they are because you feel like you'd be struggling. Because I think it comes from like, right, probably struggling on her own, not being able to make ends meet because of this getting remarried. She was probably able to pay the bills and they were able to keep the roofs over their heads. So it's like, yeah, there's a little bad. It's bad that had to come with the good. So she's willing to compromise because of that. But it's, and a princess puts herself in a position where she's like, I will never be in that position. I will never be like my mom and compromise. I will not accept things as like, oh, it could be worse. It's like, no, it needs to be and could be better. And she also refused to sell out Eugene because it's like, I was alone for so long and Eugene accepted me like issues and all, like no judgment. It's like, that isn't the signs of a bad person. That's the sign of a good person. And she'd even said that she, because of her experiences with her stepfather and her stepbrother, I'm sure her father bailing on her at a young age didn't help either, but she looks at men as monsters, and she's like, for so many reasons, like, men in her eyes are monsters, but she's like, but I want you to know, you take solace in knowing, like, I don't look at you, I just need you to know I don't look at you like that. And she leaves, so we'll see how that ultimately ends up playing out. There's also the situation, Eugene. He wanted to leave, but I love that he puts his fist up and Daryl just kind of gives him a look, and he's like, no, go ahead. He's like, what, you're not going to stop me? He's like, no, because I know you're not going anywhere. He's like, because I'm a coward. And it's like, no, because you're smart. That's the thing, because that's Eugene's biggest insecurity about himself. I mean, they even flash back to it of like, yeah, where this all started with Eugene. You kind of forget from time to time, like, where a lot of characters start. Like, from time to time, I forget about where Gabriel started. And I talked about that in a couple episodes ago. But also, like, Eugene is like, yeah, this all started with a lie, him leading Rosita and Abraham down the wrong path, thinking like they were going to go deliver a cure in Washington, D.C. or something like, right? And it kind of ties nicely into that line from Judith, where it's basically like, right, who we were before. But that basically doesn't have to, it's essentially, and I'm probably butchering this, but it was basically like, who we are now is what matters. And because like, this entire group has changed and grown so much. Eugene in particular has grown, and he's tried to do the right thing along the way, but he probably still, like, at the end of the day, I'm still the coward I always have been. And even asking Daryl was like, do you think people are born brave or do they become brave? And Daryl's like, both. And so he wanted to do the right thing. He wanted to be brave. He didn't want to leave this time. But Rosita's like, no, you need to go, because if you stay here, they will kill you. And for him, it's like, she's the love of my life. Like, I can't leave her. She's made me a better person. You told me I would find someone that would be my better half, and I did. And how can I leave her? Like, I trusted you like I always do, so trust me. He's like, I need to do this, because he's like, if he leaves her behind, then he's like, I'm going to be back to the Eugene I've always been. And I'm like, that's not who I want to be. I want to be brave. I want to do the right thing. And leaving that gift for Coco. And I thought that was like, it actually made me tear up, because it's like, right, considering how long these characters have been together. I mean, when you think back to season 4, when that entire, like, it was Eugene, Rosita, Abraham, and then they eventually met up with Glenn and Tara, and just like they're the only two, like obviously it was just those two and like Abraham for so long, but then now it's like, yeah, that group of like Glenn and Tara for a while too, like all of them are gone. They're the only two left standing of their group, and so having gone through everything they've gone through for so long to be where they are, you know, and her tearing up, having to say goodbye to him because it's like this is like her oldest friend and ally. She's kind of saying goodbye to because she doesn't know. She hopes that everything works out, but even she's still, you know, scared because it's like, right, it could just as easily end up being a situation where he dies. So that's where they find themselves. And at the end, Eugene confesses, yeah, it was all me, and Max had no involvement. And you can look on Mercer's face because I think for him it's like, right, Eugene has the bravery to sacrifice himself for my sister's sake. What, you know, it speaks volumes of what kind of man he is in comparison to me. I think for Mercer, it's like, right, I'm willing to, yes, I'm trying to save my sister's life, but can I live with that because of my sister's heartbreak on like how much like this person she cares about he's willing to sacrifice himself. He's willing to stand up for what he believes. And what am I going to do? Yes, I'm fighting for my family, but is that going to be enough? Like, should it be enough? Will it be enough? Can I continue letting things go on the way they're going? Well, ultimately, I have to wait and see where things kind of go on that front. But we do have this thing at the end where Rosita is getting grabbed up because it's not just going to end with Eugene. It's like, no, Pamela's going to want everybody's heads because of what Hornsby said. Like, he might not be her confidant anymore, and maybe she still will take advice from him while he's feeding Sebastian, or maybe it's just, no, what he said is right. I need to get rid of everyone from Hilltop and Alexandria, and I'm going to rein this all back in. I think she's going full dictator in this piece, and maybe that's her trajectory now, because it's like, what else do I have left? Nothing. So I'm the last of my family. I'm the last. So this is all I have. Because she even had that conversation with Sebastian, even though he was dead, being, you always thought I chose this place over you. Now it's like, right. She was like, right, there was kind of never a choice. And now it's a thing of, there's even less of a choice now. So it's like, right, all I have is this. Might as well rule it with an iron fist. Could easily be where the direction of her story goes. But she's kidnapping Rosita at the end. Most likely going to do that, go after everyone that's close to Eugene, but I also think it's specifically just everyone outside of the Commonwealth, and kind of trying to rein it all back in. So we'll see how successful she is with that, what the end result of all of this is going to be going forward into the next episode. But we also have the whole situation with Aaron and the others as they're making their way back. And then there was that weird situation where, like, all the walkers, the horde is walking by, and then one turns. Didn't even cross my mind to it, like, you know, obviously we find out that's not the case, but initially being like, it didn't even cross my mind to think that was a whisperer, because the last of the whisperers we saw just kind of scattered to the wind, and yeah, Aaron and them ran into them before, but it's like, they're kind of doing their own thing. They're not, you know, we're on decent enough terms with them, so, you know, but I guess it's like, right, we don't know where all the whisperers are, so there could be some out there kind of doing their thing too. But some interesting conversations came up. Obviously, you could tell, like, Aaron's kind of a little, like frustrated, I guess, with just everything going on, and just wanted to get back to Gracie, make sure she's okay, making sure that all the community survive. But there's a whole thing between Elijah and Lydia, and they're kind of hitting it off, but he tries to kiss her. At one point, she backs away. I was like, I can understand. Like, even before she said anything, I figured it had to be about Henry, because it's like, right, the last person she got really close to like that ended up dead. Like, it's gonna cause some issues for you. Which, talking to Aaron, he gave her some advice, because I was about to say, like, you probably know better than anyone, because I didn't even think about it. I was like, right, he hasn't been with anyone since Eric died, you know? It's just like, yeah, because like eventually he got Gracie and she's kind of become his world, but he never like found another, like to my recollection, he's never been with anyone since Eric died. And he told that story about like how him and Eric started dating. He was like, right, Eric kept being like, asking me out, and I kept saying no for 6 months, and then finally I gave in, and it's like, right, the life that they had in Alexandria together, he's like, I would never trade that for anything. those were the happiest moments in my life. But he's like, at any point in time, I wish I could go back and take back any one of those no's just to have one more day with him. And I thought that was beautiful. It's like, right. Like, loss is a guarantee. It's one of the few guarantees you have in life that we will you'll have loss. It's just the nature of the world as it was before, as it is now. But at the very least, you should take those opportunities to say yes when you have the chance, because once you never know what life has in store for you. But suddenly they get attacked and surrounded, and it's like, well, how did they get in? There's all those noises, because like walkers they typically don't climb things. They'll like push through, but it's like there's 50 of them here. What's going on? And immediately Aaron, and then at one point one starts turning a doorknob. Like when they start doing that, it's like, oh my god, it's got to be the Whisperers. I was like, oh, it didn't even cross my mind there might be some hidden amongst them. And especially when that one came over to Jerry and it picked up a rock. But I think that speaks volumes too. Like immediately could tell something was off, because well, if it's a Whisperer, why didn't they yell or anything when Lydia stabbed him? Because the knife that she stabbed that walker with is still there. They could have easily pulled that knife out and killed Jerry, but they went over, picked up the rock, and Aaron bashed his head in, and was like, come on, you stupid Whisperer, ripped his face off, and it was just a walker. I was like, what the? I was like, well, we do know because World Beyond that the walkers aren't the same. I still need to go back, because the scientist from the CDC from the from the first season of The Walking Dead, I completely missed everything he was saying because there was this speech going on between the two characters. But at the very end, it showed like walkers aren't the same. And even Aaron's like, yeah, I've heard whispers about like walkers, like going back to obviously the places that they remember. The fact is being able to turn doorknobs. It's like, what could it mean? Could it be like a fluke, like an aberration? Could there be something else too? It's like, I think it's slowly just like throwing it out there in this final season of like, right, the walkers are evolving, and maybe that might be an even bigger thing. I don't know, because I think this is directly connecting to the whole World Beyond situation. Like, who knows? Because once again, I don't know the time frame, because World Beyond takes place like, oh yeah, it's been 10 years since the fall. Once again, The Walking Dead's taking place 12 years after the fact. It might even be more time in, but I don't know if there's, because they were still saying like it was 10 years, like even during World Beyond. So I think even more time has passed now. So once again, I don't know the time frames between every show, like where in the timeline they're all taking place. Like specifically when they're more present, like stuff like where's Fear in the grand scheme of things? Has it been on that 12-year time scale? Are we beyond that? Are we on par with The Walking Dead? Like what's going on that front, right? So there's that, but so I guess it's just going to be one of those little things like, oh, going forward for these last few episodes, we need to just be on the lookout, because those could be minor. It could just be a world thing that they're just setting up like, oh, it's here in the background. It's not going to be a main thing because it hasn't completely spread yet, but it's going to be here and there, letting you know any stories in this universe going forward. That's going to be sprinkled in here and there. Maybe that might just be all that is. But either way, luckily they got rid of all the walkers, but I did like the thing at the end of like, oh, well, first and foremost, the Elijah and Lydia thing is like, right, taking that chance to say yes, but also Jerry's like, oh, this could be the Kingdom 2.0, Ezekiel becoming king, but Ezekiel probably wouldn't want that now after everything. It's like, right, he wants to be in the Commonwealth to help out there, but, Aaron's like, yeah, I think this could be, King Jerry has a nice ring to it. It's like, King Jerry, referencing his wife as queen. It's like, yeah. So that'd be interesting if that's Jerry's end result of this, that he ends up becoming the new, like, the Kingdom 2.0 gets built, and he kind of that I think that'd be really neat. I think it'd almost be coming full circle if Lydia was a part of it, just because of the whole Henry angle of it as well. I think that would be interesting, but a lot of fascinating things to keep in mind as we go forward into the next episode, which comes out tomorrow at the time of recording this. I just kept pushing this off for so long, because once again, it's like, I also like, because The Walking Dead's such a depressing show. Sometimes I'm like, I kind of have to work my way up to it sometimes, and I need a palate cleanser just to kind of like, because it's just like, man, I was like, do I want something like depressing like The Walking Dead? So it's just that's always my hesitancy with this show in any general form. Once again, the Tales of the Walking Dead, I still need to finish that up, because I'm like halfway through the season. I've been halfway through the season for a while, just haven't taken time to catch up. But it's like, that's not as depressing. I mean, some it is and some it isn't. I've only first two episodes weren't as depressing. The third episode kind of was. I don't know what the back half of that season is going to look like, but either way, I'm definitely interested to see where the next episode takes us with all this, kind of moving past my tangent. But really, that's all I want to talk about. Till the next time we meet, be happy, be safe, live life to the fullest, and enjoy it. Good day and good